All right, so day 20 is all about this concept of balancing the ebb and flow of stress and recovery. And everybody here knows that song, to everything, turn, there is a season, a time to reap, a time to sow, those kinds of things. And I think that this is a law, a natural law, that we misunderstand a lot, that everything has its opposites, and that there needs to be balance, that in our lives we have stress. A lot of times we just have stress, right? Who doesn't have stress? But a lot of times we don't stress ourselves in the right ways, and then we don't get enough recovery. We don't recover ourselves in the right ways. A lot of what I have to say is from this book. It's called The Powerful Engagement, and Managing Energy, Not Time, is the key to high performance and personal renewal. And I really love this book because I learned a lot about what it means to ebb and flow between stress and recovery. That our bodies naturally, within the day even, go back and forth between stress and recovery, between an ebb and flow of our energy. And that about every 90 minutes to 2 hours, actually, we feel this ebb, this lull in our energy. But that a lot of times, instead of honoring the need to have that recovery time, we push through it, right? We eat treats, we drink energy drinks, or, we do things like that to push ourselves through that ebb in our energy. And so today is all about learning how to balance out our energy between this stress and recovery. That it's actually a good thing to get a good kind of stress, get a good amount of good kind of stress, so that we can then appreciate the recovery time. So in the book they talk about four areas of our life where our energy can be expended or renewed, and they are emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and physically. And that a lot of times we get a lot of stress emotionally and mentally, right? Where we're just emotionally and mentally overwhelmed all the time. And that we don't make ourselves get enough recovery mentally and emotionally. And that physically and spiritually we don't get enough stress, really. So, we don't make ourselves exercise enough, or we don't make ourselves meditate and study enough, and things like that. And so in the book they talk about, these different ways that we can get adequate amount of stress and recovery in each of these areas. And true recovery, because they talk about, it's something that we think about, is that if you are constantly stressed, and this is what we do with escape coping strategies. When we pick up our phones, we aren't in recovery because we are in overstimulation mode. Okay, our brains are being overstimulated. If you go back to day 1, I talked about this either in the video or the email, where when we pick up our phones and we're overstimulated digitally, and our brains are still on fire. And so that's not true recovery. So when we turn to our phones, then we aren't truly recovering. We're just flatlining, is what their word in the book is, that we flatline. Well, where else do we hear that word flatlining? Okay? In the hospital, when the heart monitor stops working. Okay? And so we need to balance between stress and recovery. Our lives have seasons, right? We all know that the world has seasons. This is a natural process, and that our lives even go through these natural ebbing and flowing between productivity and not as productive. And that's okay. This is all part of a natural way of appreciating these things. And that's the other thing about this idea that we need stress, is that there are going to be seasons of our lives when we are learning, and that those lessons can be really hard. We have to be able to experience being humble, or being able to learn about ourselves and our capacity by doing hard things, and that's natural. That's an important part of our growing process. And then we enjoy some recovery time when we say, I got it. I understand this concept now. I don't need to stress myself about it because I understand, and I can sit and appreciate the benefits of knowing this information, or having learned that lesson. I think a lot of times feeling depressed is because it's not a choice, but there's a way that we can choose to maybe learn how to do more to stress ourselves, to challenge ourselves, to put ourselves outside of our comfort zone, because we flatlined and the low end, but at the same time, it's not, because it's stress in other ways. But this is something that is, again, this idea. If we are flatlining, if we're staying stagnant, then we aren't growing. We can't grow if we're not going between pushing ourselves and recovering. And so this is a natural, I can't even express this enough. It's a natural law to have opposites, to appreciate that we can take something negative and get something good out of it, or to push ourselves and learn from it, or experience the trial for what it is. I keep hearing people would say, oh, I'm so grateful for this trial because I learned X, Y, and Z. And it's not during the trial a lot of times that we say that, but it's in the recovery stage that we feel that way, and we're grateful. But I think that you can learn to be grateful in the trial when we appreciate that it is a time and a season of learning, and that as we embrace that opportunity to learn, then the time of recovery will come sooner. And because there is going to be a time of recovery, it's just a natural part of the law that we will be able to enjoy that recovery time if we appreciate the stress time. Thanks again for following along. Be sure to share this with your friends. Send them to homeandfamilyculture.com/cope to catch all the videos in the 30-day challenge. And then head over to Instagram and find me at Family Culture Podcast. Tag me in your stories and tell me about how this series is making an impact on you. Tell me how this particular coping strategy is impacting you, and tag me and use the hashtag #FamilyCopingSkills. Thank you so much for following along. You can also email me if you have questions or insights or anything you want to share at jody@homeandfamilyculture.com. Thank you so much.